students, how are you all? Hope you are taking good care of your health at your home. So now we will start with our social science class. As you all know that we have already started our chapter 2 of history subject. We have completed our chapter number 1 and now we have started our chapter number 2 and we have discussed some topics of chapter 2. The name of the chapter is From Hunting, Gathering to Growing Food. And whatever topics we have discussed earlier, we will just do a quick recapitulation of those topics. So, in earlier classes, we have discussed about rock painting, we have discussed about water sites, we have already discussed about finding out about fire, how the early people find out about the fire, how the archaeologists find about the fire, that the people were knowing about the fire. Name some important names and dates like Paleolithic Age or Old Stone Age or Mesolithic Age or Middle Stone Age. We have already discussed about the changing environment and we have already discussed what is the meaning of rearing and herding. Now we will do a quick recapitulation of rock painting. Bhimbetka in present day Madhya Pradesh. So earlier it was known as Bhimbetka. Now we know this state as Madhya Pradesh. This is an old site with caves and rock shelters. So this place is having an old sites of archaeologists evidence where archaeologists find the evidence about the early people or the hunter gatherers, and it was also having a rock shelters. People choose these natural caves because they provide shelter from the rain, heat, and wind. These rock shelters are close to the Narmada Valley. And this is the reason these rocks caves were having a rock shelter. The people were taking this caves like a using these caves like a shelter. So why they were using these caves like a shelter? They were using these caves or the rock shelters because these shelters were providing them or they were saving them from rain, heat, and wind. These rock shelters are close to Narmada River, and the second reason why they were staying in rock shelters was that it was nearby the Narmada River. So the water was also available, and the shelter was helping them to save them from rain, heat, and wind. So these people, the hunter gatherers, were living in the rock shelters at that time because it was near the Narmada River and it was protecting them from rain, heat, and wind. Can you think of why people choose to live here? Now you can give the answer. The another topic is rock painting and what they tell us. So what does these rock painting tell us? We have already studied that these were the rock shelters and the rock caves in the where the people hunter gatherers were living in early times. So what was these paintings what was these paintings telling us? So on the left hand side you can see the picture of a rock shelter or caves, and on the right hand side you can see the pictures or the paintings which were done by the hunter gatherers or the early people on the walls of the caves. Now, many of the caves in which these early people lived have painting on the walls. As earlier I told you that these all paintings were done on the walls of the caves. Some of the best example are from Madhya Pradesh and southern Uttar Pradesh. So, some of the examples of these rock paintings are from the Madhya Pradesh and the southern Uttar Pradesh. These paintings show wild animals drawn with great accuracy and skills. So these all you can see the painting that in this painting the people have drawn the people. There are some human beings there and some animals drawing is there. Animals painting is there, and this whole painting they have done with very great accuracy and skills. You can see how much accurately they are doing, how much clear painting they have painted, so that the people are able to understand that what they want to tell or what they want to depict. Now, going further, what are sites? So, we have already discussed that what are sites, but we will do a just quick recapitulation. Anyone knows what is site? Now, Yes, sites are places where the remains of things, so whatever evidence the archaeologists find to know about our past, all those places where the evidence are being found, whether it is tools, whether it is pots, whether it is old buildings, where these all things are being found, whether it is on the surface of the earth, whether it is under the surface of the earth, or whether it is under the water, wherever it is, those all places are called the sites. Now, we will find that how the archaeologists found that the early human beings or the hunter-gatherers were knowing about the fire earlier also. Find the Kurnool caves on map. You can see in the down map there is a arrow, red color arrow. There are Kurnool caves. These are also the archaeologist sites where the archaeologist finds some evidence about the hunter-gatherers, that what they were doing. They found a traces of ash have been found here. So they found the traces of ash. When the people burn anything, the black color substance is there, that is known as ash. So the archaeologists find some traces of ash. By that only they come to understand that the hunter gatherers were using fire in their time also. They were using fire for what purpose they were using fire. These people were using fire as a source of light. They were using that fire for a source of light, so that light could be there. They roasted meat for their food and to scare away animals. When the wild animals come and attack on them, they scare those wild animals with the help of fire only. Now, there are some uses of fire nowadays. Can you think what are the uses of fire nowadays? Why we use fire, and what things we can use fire? Can you think about those all things? Yes, some of the purposes for which fire is being used to in nowadays, I have just explained here. It is fire is used in nowadays for ritual purpose. So whenever we have marriages, we have some for some worship kind of thing is there. So we use fire for in that purpose. Fire is also used in agriculture for clearing land. Fire is used for cooking food. Fire is used for generating heat and light. Fire is also used for signaling. And fire is used for propulsion purpose. Fire is also used for smelting, incineration of waste, cremation, and as a weapon or mode of destruction. So all these purpose nowadays fire are used. Now we will go for in Kurnool caves. These are the pictures of Kurnool caves. And where are Kurnool caves? Kurnool caves are in district Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. So Kurnool caves are in Kurnool district in the state Andhra Pradesh. You can see these pictures are of Kurnool caves, and from here only the archaeologists find the traces of ash. By that only they came to know that the hunter gatherers were using fire for their different uses. Now there are some important names and dates which we have to learn also. There is a Paleolithic stage, which is also called the Old Stone Age. Archaeologists have given lengthy names for the times that we are studying. So the archaeologist has given some time period. They have given some particular name for some time period, where what they were doing, what at that time the people were doing, what at that time the people were eating, what kind of clothes they were wearing. So that all things for a particular period they have given some particular name, and there are some particular dates from which time period to which time period that particular age or that particular period was there. So archaeologists have given lengthy names for the time that we are studying. They call the earliest period, the first earliest period they call as Paleolithic or Old Stone Age. This name from where they got this name? They got this name from a Greek word. There are two Greek words for this Paleolithic name. So paleo means old and lithos means stones. So Paleo means old and lithos means stone. From this only they kept this earliest period as Old Stone Age or Paleolithic. The name point to the importance of finding of stone tools. And why they kept this period as a Paleolithic period? Because they find so many stone tools, so many evidence of stone tools of this time period. So they kept this period or this earliest period as Paleolithic stage, or they kept this period as a Old Stone Age. The Paleolithic period extends from 2 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago. So this Paleolithic stage started from 2 million years ago, and it was about 12,000 years ago. It was continued till 12,000 years ago. This long stretch of time is divided into lower, middle and upper Paleolithic age. This long span of time covers 99% of human history. So this long span of time where lower Paleolithic age was there, middle Paleolithic age was there, and upper Paleolithic age was there, this whole time period span of time covers 99% of the human history. Now we will talk about the Mesolithic age or the Middle Stone Age. So the period when we find environmental change, the Paleolithic age, the early Paleolithic age was started from 2 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago, and then after 12,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago, that period was known as Mesolithic age or the Middle Stone Age. And in this time period, there were so many environmental changes, so many changes in the environment was done. And in this time when the weather condition changed, somehow the weather became somehow warmer. Stone tools were found during this period and are generally tiny and are called microliths. So at the time of early Paleolithic stage or the Old Stone Age, the stone tools were very huge, they were very big in size. But now when the people came up to the Middle Stone Age, they generally made the weapons or the tools with the very tiny, very small. They were making the tools, and they were known as microliths. And microliths were probably stuck on the handles of bones or wood to make tools such as saw and sickles. So these microlith tools were made with the help of handles of bones, or they were having the handles of wood. And then after having the handles of wood and bones, these small tiny stones were made like a tool, and they were used like a tool such as saws and sickles. At the same time, older variety of tools continued to be in use. So at the time, the old Stone Age tools and the Middle Stone Age tools were in use. The next stage from about 10,000 years ago is known as Neolithic. So the after 10,000 years ago, so there was a period which was known as Neolithic stage, and this was a what which stage? This was a upper Paleolithic stage. We will discuss about this later in this chapter. Around 12,000 years ago, there was a changing environment. As we have discussed in Mesolithic period, there was a change in environment. So, what type of change of environment was there? We will study now. Around 12,000 years ago, there were major changes in climate of the world, with a shift to relative warm conditions. As earlier I have told you that there was a relative warm condition because of environmental changes in the world. In many areas, this led to the development of grassland. So grassland was developed, and due to with the development of grassland, an increase in number of deer, antelopes, goats, sheep, and cattle were there. They survived on the grass. They eat the grass, and so many numbers of deers and antelopes and goats was increased. Those who hunted these animals followed their food habits and their breeding season. So those people who were hunting these animals followed, they learned about their food habits of the animals and their breeding season. And this thing, when they learned about the food habits and their breeding seasons of these animals, these people come to know, these people learned about all the things about the animals, and they started thinking that if we are knowing about the food habits of these animals and we are knowing the breeding seasons of these animals, why we should not keep these animals with ourselves. So by this only the this thinking make a arise of herding and rearing these animals themselves. They started to herding and rearing these animals themselves. So they started keeping these animals with themselves. Now this herding, what does this herding and rearing means? This we will study in the further chapter. Fishing also become important. So fishing also become important by this time. People were doing fishing also. Now, what does this herding and rearing means? Herding is basically a group of animal. When we manage a group of animal like sheep, cattle, sheep, horse, or goat, when these are in a group and we manage these in a group, that is known as herding. And what is rearing? Rearing is raising any animal from childhood to adulthood. When we are giving them food, we are caring about them. That is known as rearing. But rearing is defined as animal raised or breed for their use or for pleasure or profit. When we are keeping these animals, we are raising these animals, we are giving them food, but there is a purpose. Maybe there is a purpose of pleasure. We feel pleasure to keep the animals. We feel very happy when we are keeping and caring the animals. Maybe we for a profit purpose we are using rearing these animals. Maybe for food purpose we are rearing these animals. We want to, from them we can get the food, and we are for the purpose of milk also we rear the animals. So these type of things we have in rearing of animals. Now, what is domestication of plants and animals? This is a new topic which we will discuss today. So what is domestication of animals and birds? Domestication is a name given to the process in which people grow plants look after animals. So domestication is a process where people grow plants and look after the animals. Very often plants and animals that are tended by people become different from wild plants and animals. So when we are domesticating the animals, they look very different as compared to the wild animals and plants. This is because people select plants and animals for domestication. For example, they select those plants and animals that are not prone to diseases. So what type of animals and plants people at that time selected for domestication, for keeping them with themselves? They selected all those animals and plants which were not very much prone to the diseases, which were not having so many diseases with them. So these type of plants and animals, they started domesticating those type of animals and plants. They started keeping those animals and plants with themselves which were not very prone to diseases. These they also select plants that yield large size grains and have strong stalk capable of bearing the weight of the ripe grain. So they also started the yielding of large size grains where like wheat, barley, and rice. They started keeping these types of plants which were having grasses with them, and they started domesticating these type of plants with them. They on the left hand side, if you see, there is a picture of a plant wheat, sorry, corn. This is a picture of a plant corn, and this is a wild corn plant. And on the right hand side, if we move, which is showing a corn also, so that is a picture of domesticated corn plant. So now you can see the difference, how the wild corn plant looks and how the domesticated corn plant looks. So there is a lot of difference between wild plants and the domesticated plant. These are some animals. If you see on the right hand side, these are the animals which the early men or the hunter and gatherer started domesticating when keeping them with them where they were living. Like horse was there, zebra was there, sheep was there, goat was there, cow was there, and these were some plants which they started domesticated. Now, seeds from selected plants are preserved and sown to ensure that new plants and seeds will have the same qualities. What they started to domesticate the animals. Now they wanted those plants which they have started domesticating. They wanted the same plant to be grown again and again. So what they did, they took the seeds of those plants, domesticated plants, and they sow in the soil, and then from that seed the same kind of domesticated plant was there, and so on they started doing lots of planting and lots of domestication of the plants. Among animals, those that you can see on the left hand side, there is a picture where the seed is being sown in the soil. After that, the baby plant is being grown up, and then a big plant is grown up, according which is a domesticated plant. Amongst animals, those are relatively gentle are selected for breeding. As a result, gradually domesticated animals and plants become different from wild animals and plants. On the right hand side, if you see the picture, these are the picture of wild animals and the domesticated animals when the people started domesticating these animals. So what happened when they started domesticating the animals? They started domesticating the animals which are very gentle. They were not very wild in nature, they were not very rude in nature, so they were very gentle, and they were selected for they can breed easily. Whoso animal can breed easily, they selected those animals, and those animals which were very gentle were selected for domestication. As a result, what happened? All the domesticated animals and plants become different from wild animals and plants. For example, the teeth and the horns of wild animals are usually much larger than those of domesticated animals. So for example, if we take the wild animals have a very big teeth, and they have very big horns, but when they were domesticated, then the horns were very small and the teeth were very small as compared to the wild animals. You can see on the right hand side, I have pasted one picture where wild pig is there, and you can see how domesticated pig looks like. Wild sheep is there. It is having a very big horns, and on the right hand side corner upper side you have a domesticated sheep. So this is very small horns are there, and how she's it is looking. Now you can see a wild cow is there on the left hand side, and now the domesticated cow is also there. The wild goat is there, which is having a very big horn, and when it was domesticated, the domesticated goat looks like very small horns are there for domesticated goats. Now, wild progenitors to domesticated plants. So, what are wild progenitor? Progenitor means the ancestor from where the plant has been come up, from where the plants were started. So, a person or thing from which a person or animal or a plant is descended or originates. So, from where the plants and animals are originated, that are known as progenitor plants, or the ancestor or the parent animals. A person who originates a cultural or intellectual movement, that is known as progenitor. So you can see on the left hand side, with the help of picture, I will explain you that on the left hand side, the wild progenitor is there. This is the originator of the plant, and on the right hand side, you can see a domestic plant, how it is looking, how the wild progenitor is looking unmanageable, and how the domestic plant is looking. It is looking so beautiful, so managed, so organized. Same way, the second picture is showing the wild wheat. On the left hand side, you see the wild wheat, how it is looking. And after that, when the people started domesticating it, it looks like this, like how we are seeing nowadays. Say I have taken the picture of a cow. The cow started when it was wild. It was having a big horns, and after that the cow's horn became smaller and smaller. So domestication was a gradual process that took place in many parts of the world. So it was not done in a day or in 2 days. It was a gradual process. So it took so many years to change, and it took so many years to to take place in the world, in every part of the world. It began about 12,000 years ago when the Mesolithic period was there. The people started thinking about keeping the animals with them, keeping the plants with them. So it began about 12,000 years ago. Virtually all plants and animals produce that we use as food today is a result of domestication. So whatever we are eating right today as a food like wheat, barley, rice, that is a result of domestication of that time. If they have not done the domestication of the wild animals and plants, we were not able to eat the plants which we are eating right now. That whatever foods we are getting from the plants, that are the result of domesticated animals and plants. Some of the earliest plants to be domesticated were wheat and barley. So earlier, when domestication was started for plants, that only the people were keeping wheat and barley with them. They were domesticating these plants only. The earliest domesticated animal include sheep and goat. As we were talking about the plants, the earliest domesticated plants were wheat and barley. Same way, the earliest domesticated animals were sheep and goat. This is all how. Now we will start with another topic, that how there was a beginning of farming and herding. What made the people do farming and herding? This was also a time when several grain bearing grasses include wheat, barley and rice grew naturally in different parts of the continent. Men and women and children probably collected these grains as food and learned where they grew and when they ripened. So all when they started keeping these plants with them growing them in nearby area where they were living, these grasses, grain bearing grasses, somehow was grown naturally in some parts of the subcontinent. When these grasses were naturally grown in some parts of animals, so some parts of the subcontinent, so the men and women and children which were living nearby the area, they started learning about when they are growing, how they are growing, what type of soil is required to grow, and when they are ripened, when we can use them as a food. So these all process was being learned by the men and women and children of that time, when which were living nearby these areas where naturally the grain bearing grasses were grown. This may have led them to think about growing plants on their own. So that this thinking, when they learned the process, how when was the grain bearing grasses being grew, how, what type of soil they were requiring, when they were, what was the time period, what was the season when they were ripened, when they learned all the process, then they start thinking that why we should not grow these all things by their own, by us only, why we cannot grow these plants by our own. And this thinking led to the beginning of farming, and the people in this way became farmer. People could also attract and then tame animals by leaving food for them near their shelter. The first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestor of the dog. Later, people encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camps where they lived. So people were very attracted toward the animals, and when they started taming the animals, they leave the whatever leftover food was with them. They leave that food for those animals, and they give the tamed animals the shelter. The first animal which they tamed was a wild ancestor of dog. Later, the people encouraged animals and that were relatively gentle to come near and the camps where they lived. So later, what they did, they relatively tamed all those animals which were gentle in nature, and they allow those animals to come nearby their camps or nearby their living areas, which were very gentle in nature. These animals were, the gentle animals were sheep, goat, cattle, and also the pig lived in the herds, and most of them ate grass. So all those animals which they were allowing to come in their camps were sheep, goat, cattle, and also pig, which were living in a herds, which were living in a group, and they were eating grasses. Often people protected these animals from attacks by other wild animals. So when these animals became tamed to these people, so they also saved these animals with the wild animals who were attacking them. So they started protecting them. These animals like sheep, goat, cattle, they started protecting these animals as with the wild animals, and they started protecting them. They started giving them food. They started them keeping with themselves, and then this is how they became a herder. Because when they started protecting them, when they started giving them food, when they started managing them in a group, and they were allowing these animals to come to their camp, this way they become a herder. They become a people who were taking care of the animals in a group. Now, sheep and goats were first domesticated roughly 11,000 years ago. As we have earlier discussed, that who were the first domesticated animals? The first domesticated animals were sheep and goat, and it was domesticated earlier, roughly around 11,000 years ago. While cats became pets around 7,000 BC. So, around 7,000 years ago, cats were also being domesticated. With then there was an advancement of agriculture also. So people started farming. They started different types of crops to be grown. They started different types of plants to grow and domesticate them as a domesticated plants. Now, can you think of any reason why the dog was perhaps the first animal to be tamed? As earlier we have discussed that the dog was a tamed animal, and the ancestor of dog was the first tamed animal. So, can you think what was the reason why dog was the first animal to be tamed? Yes, there is a reason behind that. The first animal to be tamed by the was the wild ancestors of the dog. We have discussed this earlier because the dog is smaller in size and could be easily kept. Also, it is an intelligent animal when it is compared with other animals like goat, sheep, and pig. So, it is intelligent also. Canis familiars, the domestic dog, was the first species to be domesticated by humans from Eurasians grey wolves at least 15,000 years ago. So this was an ancestor of the dog, the wild ancestor of dogs. See, you can see the picture, the wolf. The dogs were looking earlier as a wolf only. So he was a ancestor of old wild ancestor of the dog. And then when the early person made them tame, then the dogs look like this, which was seeing in the on the right hand side, the pictures of the dog. So the first reason why they were tamed firstly was they were very smaller in size and they can be kept easily. Second reason was they were intelligent. They were intelligent animal, which as compared to goat, sheep, and pig. These were the two reasons why the people, the hunter gatherers or the early people started taming dog. So we have already discussed about the topics. Now please see the video. Please understand the chapter. Whatever topics we have discussed in this chapter, please understand that. And if you have any query, just ask me in the next class. Thank you all and stay safe and healthy.